Alfred.
Welcome to Living on Purpose Minipod. I'm Mark Humphrey along with my co-host Dr. Kristie Stewart. And you know what, Kristie? We had a debate not that long ago over the Al Franken and Doug Jones. And
we had a heated debate.
Heated debate. So
over their Al Franken resignation.
Oh, we were. And so we were wanting to do a show on what was ethically and morally right. You know, doing the right thing. You've done some research on this. Can you start out with what the definition is for ethics and morals?
Well, ethics and morals relate to what's right and wrong in our conduct, right? While they're sometimes used interchangeably, they are different. Ethics refers to the rules provided by an external source, right? The codes of conduct in your workplace, the principles in your religion, the laws in the communities in which we live. Those are ethical principles that guide a person or a society. They're created to decide what's good and bad, right and wrong in different and given situations. And ethics influence our laws, right? They're universally accepted rules that are usually implemented by a government organization. But both ethics and morals can change with the times and the social norms. You know, they can be different in different jobs, right? Different jobs that you go to. You can do some legally or ethically do some things in this job that you couldn't do in the other one. They're different in religions, most definitely. And different states have different laws, and those change, again, over time. What was once legal and ethical to own another human being, for example, the external source, the laws that at the time said that was good, especially for capitalism, right, at the time. But it's now you can't do that. The bigotry obviously still exists, but the legal aspect of owning another human being is not ethical. Those changed over time.
Well, and I think that's the most interesting part about our debate is I really thought that we were moving past all these kinds of things, and clearly we're not.
Right. So, that was the thing with the whole Roy Moore, Doug Jones election in Alabama, because that was one of the things that we talked about, that I could not believe that actually in September of 2016 that a politician or anyone running for a publicly held office actually said, and I quote, "I think it was great at a time when families were united. Even though we had slavery, they cared for one another. Our families were strong and our country had a direction." This was in an answer to an LA Times, I believe, that asked him when exactly was America great. I mean, seriously? During times of slavery was great because they cared about each other? I don't think there's a whole demographic of people that would agree with you on that.
Well, and apparently the ethics and morals of some people really got to them, because didn't you say there was like a huge write-in vote in Alabama?
Oh yeah, there were 21,000 write-in votes, and they were write-in votes for two primary people that got those 21,000 votes, and they were the University of Alabama and the Auburn University head football coaches. Seriously? But yes, Roy Moore, even though he lost, he got like 360,000 votes.
I still try to process that every day. I don't even know how, but I think it's interesting that when you brought up ethics are an external influence, right? Mm-hmm. They affect our laws and how we look at things. But what about morality and values? How do they play a part in it?
Again, the ethics are external. Those are things that are generally put upon you externally. Morals are those things that we refer as our individual principles regarding what we believe internally is right and wrong. And again, they also change over time, right? They can change geographically, they can change socioeconomically, and they certainly can change with education. We see kids grow up with one set of morals, and then they go off to college and move to another geographical area. Now they no longer agree with anything that their parents believed, right? All the new inputs have helped them to make different choices. We see people go on mission trips.
Yeah.
Right? And their whole life changes. They see people in poverty differently. People experiencing diversity for the first time can change their perceptions of a whole group of people.
Yep.
So really, those type of things, education, and can really change morally what internally we believe is right and wrong, just and fair.
Well, I got to tell you, one of the things that changed my viewpoints is when I got outside the country. And it changed my whole perception on what poor actually was.
Right.
It does.
Do that for you.
When we're talking about this, basically ethics are mandated, right? They're your external source, and morals are those individual things, those things that you believe in.
Right.
So we're talking about core values here, right?
Well, core values and morals they're very similar, but they're different. Values are the ideals, the fundamental beliefs deep inside that shape your moral belief of what is right and wrong. Values are those core principles that help in making the distinction between what is right and wrong. Ethics and morality can change. It's not very likely that your core value is going to shift very far. They're deep within you. They're those core things that you believe that don't have adjectives, which is the interesting thing, because your morality is what's going to dictate the adjective of what's good and bad. Your core value is pretty much going to stay the same. So it's not really about changing your core values. It's about becoming more in touch with them, not to change them.
So is your values kind of like the feeling, and your morality is kind of like the words that you give it?
Yeah, basically, it's how you look at things. Again, you may think of life that you want it to be fair, right? That could be a core value. Life should be fair. I think most of us believe that.
Right.
We know that it's not, or it's equally unfair to everyone, however you want to look at it. But how you implement that can be completely different. So your core value is, I want life to be fair. So you think that joining a white supremacist group is going to be in alignment with that, because you think that, say, African Americans or people with low socioeconomic status or any of those people are using the system, and you don't think that gay people are right, and you believe that.
So this is your fair. This
is how you're good and bad defining fair. This is your morality.
Okay.
So then you become, you don't think that Islam is right. So you want to bar all people that are Muslim from our country. Mm-hmm. Then you work next to a woman who wears a burqa and you like her, and your views about her change, right? So now you no longer want to be part of this group that you were, or you no longer hold this negative view of this person or this group of people, because you now have different input. And so then you actually start fighting for that cause. We see that with KKK people, with white supremacist people, to live in an extreme, right? We're giving that as an extreme, that actually change, and then they start fighting the cause on the other side.
So it just comes down to choices, is what
sure,
you're
it comes down to choices, and how you define good and bad, and those things can change. But so how we defined good and how we defined bad changed in our implementation, but our view of what's fair was what dictated that.
Oh, so the fair is the North Pole. We're just switching
back and forth.
Yeah, okay.
And we do that our whole life, right? What you thought was right at 20 is completely different than what we think is right at 50.
Yep, that's true.
There's no difference.
Yeah.
It really is just a switch. But your core values have likely not changed from the time that you were 20 to the time that you were 50. Just how you implement them is different, and how you view them as right and wrong or good and bad, black or white, or when you get to be 50, they're all gray, right?
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, we talk about, in several of our shows, we talked about cognitive dissonance, right? And your core values need to be in alignment with your actions, again, your morality. And when they're not, you're going to be really uncomfortable. And I think one example that I like to use is that if you drop me in California, I could be pretty comfortable, right? I think that my morality and my their ethics, right, their laws that they have in California, and my morality and my core values are going to be in alignment. Going to be pretty comfortable living in California.
That would make sense. Yeah.
But you drop me in a city in Saudi Arabia, I'm going to be pretty uncomfortable, right? I'm not going to like wearing something over my head all the time. I'm not going to like being a second-class citizen. It's not going to work for me. Now, their rules, their laws, their ethics, their morality of their community has not changed. My view of it has changed. How I relate to it has changed. I'm fine in California. I'm not okay in Saudi Arabia.
So, like you're saying, the geographical point of your morality can
drastically change.
Well, and I think that it's interesting because the world seems to be chaotic right now, right? And could it be getting worse?
Well, I don't see morality changing very much in 1,000 years. I'm probably on the minority on that. But, we did a show on the Viking laws, and we looked at 1,000 years ago and what we still strive for today. And they're really not that different. What the Vikings made as a priority is not that much different than what we did. We did our Christmas show and our New Year's show that are all based on pagan traditions, right? They're not religious traditions. They're based on pagan, giving to the poor, being honest, embracing what you believe. Those are the same qualities that the Romans held, 2,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago. We talked in our New Year's show about New Year's resolutions and trying to be better going into the next year. That's a Babylonian 4,000 year concept. So no, I don't think that they've really changed. I just think that they're far more visible today, right? You can do everything on your phone, right? You can lie, cheat, and steal on your fingertips,
That's
but you
true.
can also be kind, loving, and compassionate on those same fingertips. So I think it's just easier to see the bad of what we want to consider the bad.
Well, I guess so, because we're bombarded every day with it on TV, billboards, doesn't matter. I mean,
Yeah.
except for this show, but the radio can be like that too. So I think it's interesting, and can your morality change with like money and?
Sure, I think we see that all the time, right? But I don't think in a good way. You see people that hit the lottery and commit suicide, right? You think that you have movie stars in Hollywood that you consider to have everything, right? They have the money, the cars, the house, the beautiful wife, and they're miserable. So I don't think money is going to buy you happiness. But in our culture, in a capitalist society, we prioritize that money can do that, and in fact can't, and I think it brings on more.
I always find that interesting that people think that, because if you watch any soap opera, these people all have money, and Lord, look at their lives.
Well, and they never work. Well, that's why the whole stereotypical soap opera, right? You're like, you don't want your life to be a soap opera. Yeah, that's funny.
Most of us want to feel better about life, and I think we can do that when we're helping other people. Quite frankly, people want to matter, right? They want to know that they've made a difference on this earth before they leave it. How do we get ourselves in such a mess when it comes to this financial and other things?
Well, I think one big thing is kind of that people want to feel right more than they want to do what's right. Because doing involves investing something, right?
That's
Yourself,
true, yeah.
your money, your time, and I think that's hard for people, especially if it's a person that doesn't feel that they value or that they are better than somebody else or that they're not worthy of someone. I think that really complicates things and that people don't feel worthy.
Well, and I think that getting out there, finding those things that you really like and want to be a part of is one way of starting that process, I believe.
Yes, most definitely. What do you want to invest? Where do you want to invest it? We talk about tithing. We talk about giving what you need. Mm-hmm. Whatever that is, your time, talent, your treasure. You give what you need, you're always going to have what you need. You might not give what you want, but you're going to always have what you need.
Well, I think that's the hard part about being an American, isn't it?
There you go. Yep.
Well, if you'd like to listen to the full podcast, feel free to jump on over to Indie Air Radio or click the link below to listen to our full podcast. Go to podcasts, go down to our page, click here, pick the show you'd like to listen to. So until next time, live every day of your life
On purpose.
on purpose.